Give you the answers that you're looking for, of course. First of all, thank you so much for having me here. This beautiful museum. I really love this hall, it's really nice. And thank you all for sticking around. I guess you are the best museum workers we have because you are still here, right? Good job, thank you. I am Simone. I work at the Rijnwaard Academy in Amsterdam. And I am a lecturer there in information and media. And I don't know if you know the Rijnwaard Academy. We have a 4-year bachelor program in cultural heritage, which means that in most of the museums in the Netherlands, the people who work there, they come from us. We have been the ones who have been educating them. We also have an international master degree program on museology, and that has participants from all over the world, from China, Australia, US, of course, Europe, and well, any country nameable. And we also are very active abroad with training programs for museums professionals or lecturing in master educations, for instance, in Moscow or Indonesia. So we're pretty much around as an academy. Indeed, yesterday some of us talked about the competencies that we need when working with digital in the field of heritage. And this morning we heard people talk about the visitor point of view, and I will continue speaking on behalf of the visitor point of view as well, but then with a slightly different, because of course I will approach it from an educational point of view. So first of all, media, digital media, new media. Since I lecture in media, my focus will be on media, of course. So. We know this, right? The pictures you see here on the screen, this is familiar to us. We all work in museums, we all know that museums have a great track record when it comes to using digital media. This is what we do, and we think this is normal. And so does our audience. This is the way we act, this is the way we communicate. And frankly, there's nothing new about this. Some people talk about digital media as being new media, but this is not new at all. For instance, the Pepper's Ghost that you see on the left side and on the top, that has its origin in the 17th century. So what's new about that? Below you see VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, also technologies that have been around for quite a while, but are, well, more used nowadays. But again, not new. Why am I here? Because I realized when I was teaching in our academy that there is a sort of movement going on with the generations that enter our academy. For instance, when I would teach about augmented reality, let's say 2008-ish, I would have a group in front of me. And I would have taught them about the technology, what is augmented reality, how does it work, what does it mean, how can you use it. Maybe there are some possibilities to have it embedded in your museum or any other way of using this new technique. And my students would be like, oh wow, this is new, great information, thank you so much, and we'll definitely get into that. 4 years later, let's say 2010, maybe 12, I would have the same class teaching about augmented reality, but then the students have already known the technique, so I wouldn't have to tell them about the technology aspects of it. They didn't know how to use it in a museum though, so they were aware of the technical point of view, but they were not aware of the possibilities how to use it in a museum context. 4 years later, like now, I don't have to teach my students anything about augmented reality. I don't have to teach them anything about how to use it in museums because they already know. This is something that I'm sort of experiencing every day. We have a new generation that is totally digital. They know all the techniques that are available. They know how they can use it for communication, for education, for any type of interaction with audiences in a museum style. So there's a gap. There's a huge gap between the people that we educate and the people working in the museum now. I don't want to be rude. Forgive me for that. I'm Dutch, so I'm direct with you, okay? Forgive me for being so. What I'm trying to say is that when we talk about the digital in the museum context, we should actually, and Rodriguez told us this morning as well, we should actually be talking about the impact of working within a digital society. Because it is actually the digital society that shapes us as a museum. It is the digital society that shifts us towards a certain direction in communicating, in interacting with our audiences, in the way that we should work digitally. So keep that in mind, please. I would like to have you meet Jan. This is Jan. He's my eldest son. He's now 8 years old. And in this picture you see him doing the thing that he loves the most. He sits hanging around all day with an iPad or other tablet or any other device, and he watches his famous vlogger playing a game on YouTube, of course, on YouTube. And this is actually the game that my son loves, so not the vlogger, but it's the favorite game of my son. And it took me quite a while to understand what is happening here. And I asked him so many times, why do you do this? Why don't you just play the game? Surely that must be more fun, right? And he could never explain it to me why he does that. He's like, why don't you get it? This is, of course I watched this picture, of course I watched this video. And after a while I started understanding, because this is the way that he is educating himself. This is the way that he is communicating with his peers. This is the way that he is learning and growing with knowledge. This is his way of getting information that he needs, because after finishing the video, he will take his smartphone and play the game. And because of watching the video, he has new insights on special features or different areas within the game, and he's actually evolving in his game because of the learning aspect from the video. This tells you quite a lot about this generation. This is a generation that acts on a totally different way. They are networkers. They use peer education, they use peer communication. They don't do the pyramid hierarchy as we know from when we grew up. And to be honest, think of your own museum. Your museum is still a pyramid. We're not networkers yet, but they are. So if they need to have something done, if they need authority for a go or no go on a project or an idea that they will search in the network to the person that has that authority, which in the pyramid is the director on top. Please have a look at this picture. Process it, and then raise your hand and be honest, of course. Who of you feels sad when looking at this picture? Some of us do, okay. Who of you feel mad when looking at this picture? Nobody's mad here. Good, you're very relaxed. Well, someone is, okay. Who gets frustrated from this image? Not many educators here, I'm guessing, because mostly they get frustrated from this picture. Maybe somebody was thinking, well, I'm guessing they're sending a picture to their mom or posting it on Facebook. Who thought that? Be honest. Yeah, some of you did. Well, of course I know what they're doing. And I'm still not sure if I'm going to tell you, because why am I showing you this picture? It's only to make you realize that this is now. The thing you see here, this is current society. This is what you all have to deal with, right? Who gets happy from this picture? Because you all should be happy from this picture. Thank you so much for getting happy from this picture. You're great. You know why? They are actually in the museum. We have been working for decades to have these teenagers come into our institutions. Well, there they are. And yes, of course, they are bringing their smartphone, because as Rutger already pointed out this morning, they all have one. And it's the most powerful device they can have nowadays. So please love them for being there with their smartphone. Do you know what they're doing? They're actually using the very good multimedia tour that the Rijksmuseum has made for them. It works perfectly. This is a generation that knows we have an information overload. So do we all know this, but we actually grew up in an age where when you were educated, you would have, well, a certain amount of books, and when you got through all the books, you would know that you would have all the information on the subject. That's not the case anymore today. This digital society has us sort of, well, it's pretty frustrating actually when you get to think of it, because this is the first generation that truly acknowledges that there's more information available than they can grasp in their education. More information available than their brains can handle to observe or to take into account. So this needs us to change the way we educate. This needs us actually to innovate the way that we learn, the way we help these kids, because they're still kids, into becoming the professionals that they want to be. And that's also the ones who enter your museums. I'll get into that later. In the Netherlands and some other Western European countries, we have been looking at what we call this new learning for about a decade already now. And maybe you've heard of the 21st century skills. It's something we use in the Netherlands, in the UK, and also in the US you find them. Of course, Finland as well. And what they say is we no longer educate our students or our pupils into a certain profession. We actually educate them in skills. So we no longer look at, well, when you want to be an engineer, you have to know this subject, or any subject. No, when you want to have a certain profession, you need to be good at ICT skills, or in critical thinking, or self-regulation, or communication, collaboration, all skills that we need for living in the 21st century, since this is a digital century. This is a digital society, and we communicate and innovate in a totally different way than we were used to. For us, this is the curriculum that we have when we educate heritage professionals. And you see here 6 areas of competencies, that's how we call it. And these are, to be honest, these are all subject matter based, like the content is the subject, which is the key aspect. And in the center you have the heritage theory, because we think that every student that leaves our academy has to have a certain theoretical backbone when it comes to knowing heritage, knowing museology. It's what everybody needs. Then they can specialize themselves into getting into collection care, or into communication, or into presentation, or anything like this. For example, when a person educates from our academy, they can be an educator, they can be an exhibition designer, they can be a registrar, or a conservation specialist, or a community manager, or a media specialist, or directors for that matter. They can do anything. They won't be curators though. We do not deliver curators. So if I were translating the 21st century skills that we know in primary school already towards what we do when educating media in the Riot Academy, I would sort of get these 5 categories that we need. And when I have them implemented in our own curriculum, I sort of realized that I'm not doing a great job as well. Because usually I would be teaching in collection care area or in presentation area. But according to this model, I should be teaching anywhere in the academy, since everything is digital now. Since the students that enter our academy are fully digitally based. They know the digital. So I should also be in management, or in professional development, or in research, communication, anywhere. So what does this mean for us? This means that we need to adapt our curriculum. This means that we should be flipping our classroom. And flipping our classroom in this matter means, for me, I teach digital heritage. So I should use digital devices, right? Because everyone who enters our academy, they have their own device. Whether it's a smartphone, or a Chromebook, or an iPad, they have the devices. So why don't I use it? The most important part of those new learning and those 21st century skills is that lecturers, or teachers for that matter, are no longer the encyclopedia who stands in front of the group like I'm standing in front of you now here today. That's what we know, right, from the past. You would sit down and there was this professor and he would tell you what he or she knows and you would go, okay. And then you take a test and he can check whether you understand what he said. That's not the way we do it anymore. We have project groups, we are coaching, we are moderating the things that they can do. We have them use their skills instead of the knowledge that we have in our heads. Because they can find the knowledge online as well. Even the museum subjects, like on conservation, for instance. You can find anything on conservation online in the Netherlands, and therefore also in the US or anywhere you are. So what does it matter to you? To the museums? Because truly, well, at least in the Netherlands, what we do affects the museums as well, since we deliver the people who enter the museum. And the young ones that you saw sitting in the Rijksmuseum in front of the most important painting of the Netherlands and didn't even look at it, they will not only be your future visitors, but they will actually be your future colleagues. Can you imagine that those teens will be the ones working in your museums? And they have a totally different way of working. They're networkers, I already told you. They have a totally different way of communicating. They use image, not email. Email, that's so not today. So that makes you change everything that you do. It actually makes you wonder. Some of my students are now doing research in whether the museum, as we know it, can go on, whether it will be extinct in a few years or not. It could be, who knows? I'm not saying that it should though, but it could. Because your visitors are the ones who can gather, analyze and share the information anytime they want, anywhere, any place, anyhow. And they don't need you for it. And that's really hard to grasp, I think. This really changes our role in society. This definitely changes the way that we can interact with those visitors. The museum is not the center of the universe. I'm very sorry to disappoint you, but it isn't. People are, individuals are. And nowadays, those individuals have a really strong go at it. They have a really strong vision of how they want to live and how the world should look like. So what should you do as a museum? Be a part of that. Be a part of their vision. Please stop fighting so hard to have them come to you. Go to them. Reach out and be part of their lives. So what does that leave us with? For an academy, as an academy? Well, we'll probably be teaching you again. Especially when it comes to media, because those youngsters are way ahead of you. And again, I don't want to be rude, but sometimes I tell my students, be aware of the dinosaurs that you're going to meet working in the museums. But there's a huge gap between our students and the dinosaurs. Of course, not you, but your colleagues, you know, the dinosaurs working in the museums. And we need to fill that gap. So, training the dinosaurs could be one thing. But also, I have to be honest, also in our own academy, I'm like, maybe one colleague of mine, especially, well, no, to be honest, okay, I'm the only one teaching media in the Rijnmond Academy. One person for like 400 students, that's not enough. And I also feel sometimes that even my own colleagues have this huge gap with what the students know and how the students live to their own vision. So probably we need to educate our own staff as well, our own lecturers. So I hope I didn't get you too upset. And if you're not mad at me for calling you a dinosaur and you still want to be friends, keep in touch. And I hope we can speak more about this subject, because I truly believe that we can make a difference if we act the way we should when we're living in the 21st century. Thank you so much for your attention.